in.
Yeah, come on in, Ed.
I have to tell people about Dirty Margot and Dorcas Hoar.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah,
Our dearly beloved Dorcas.
we know
Who was
Dorcas.
Beverly's town witch.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But in 1678, John Hale and his wife had two live-in maids, Sarah Ross and Margaret Lord. And Margaret Lord was 17. She was not a witch, but what she was rhymes with it. This was one bad chick. She was something else. You would not have liked her if you'd met her. She was a thief. She stole everything she could get her hands on from the house, everything from peas in the cellar to money out of Mr. Hale's box and Mrs. Hale's best cloth and jewelry. And everything she stole, she took down the street to her friend Dorcas Hoar, who was the godmother of the Beverly mob in 1678. She was the fence. She was the fence, and she was also essentially the town witch. She was a fortune teller. And in those days, good Christian ladies did not tell fortunes. That was messing with the devil's business. So, anyway, Margaret Lord was often left the Hale children from his first marriage. Becky was 12 that year and Robert was 9, and they were often left in the care of the servants. And Sarah Ross was intimidated as anybody else by Margaret Lord. The children were often left in the care of the servants while mom and dad are out doing their ministerial good deeds in the community. So the kids knew about the thefts, which John Hale still hadn't caught on to. But Margaret Lord had her own way of keeping them quiet. She told them, she said, "You know Goody Hoar is a witch. Right? I don't have to tell you this. You know it. Just think of her reputation, and you know she's a witch. And if you tell on me, she'll get out her book, and she'll call up the devil, and you'll be sorry you were ever born." And one day she took Becky out to the well and put her in the bucket and lowered her down. And when she pulled her up, she said, "Well, did you like it down there?" "No." "Well, if you tell on me, the next time I lower you down, you ain't coming back up." So those kids were terrified of Margaret Lord and of Dorcas Hoar. And then, as it turned out, Becky was terrified of the Hoars until the day she died at age 15 of tuberculosis. But finally, of course, John Hale wised up to what was going on here. So Margaret Lord ran away, and Dorcas Hoar and 3 of her daughters were taken to court for receiving stolen goods. Well, they got off very lightly, despite the rank of some of the people that they'd robbed. And she had 6 of her children out stealing for her, plus everybody's servant that she could line up. And they got off very lightly, but instead of being grateful for getting off lightly, the Hoar children round up John Hale's cows and beat them, and they killed the white-faced cow. So back to court we go again. And they were supposedly, the children supposedly were going to be whipped, but by paying a fine, the parents must have paid the fine, they escaped the whipping. John Hale was very forgiving. They asked him, "What, you've lost your cow?" "Well, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh." So he was very forgiving of the horse. But Margaret Lord was something, and so was Dorcas Hoar. So it wasn't any surprise that in 1692, when the witchcraft broke out, who's one of the first ones that gets called out on? Our gal Dorcas. So she's arrested, and she's arraigned, and she's indicted, and she's thrown into the jail, and she's tried, and she's convicted, and she's sentenced to be topped off on the 22nd of September in 1692, which of course at that time meant climbing up on the ladder with a rope around your neck and the other end of the rope tied to the tree limb. And at the proper time, the sheriff shoved you off, and you dangled and strangled. Not a very pleasant way to go. But Dorcas decided she's going to save herself. The only ones who were executed were those who insisted they were innocent. Because in those days, the Puritan code, lying was about the worst offense you could commit. These people were willing to go to their death rather than commit the sin of lying that oh yes, I'm a witch. But Dorcas, she saved herself. She had a fancy confession, and she called to the jail to get the magistrates and the ministers in here. I'm ready to confess. So they all gathered around, including John Hale, and she told her tale, and she named names and places and events. So they draw up a letter to the Governor Phipps, send it off by express rider to get Dorcas reprieved. So that night, Judge Samuel Sewell, who was one of the witch judges, wrote in his diary that an order is sent to the sheriff to forbear her execution, notwithstanding her being in the warrant to die tomorrow. This is the first convicted witch that has confessed. So Dorcas was famous as the first to confess after Tituba, the slave. She saved herself early on by confessing. But Dorcas saved herself. The next day, the other eight all went in the cart and didn't come back. And Dorcas survived, eventually got out of jail, came back to Beverly, and probably wasn't too popular in town. And by 1697, she was a pauper and was being paid for by the taxpayers. She was fortunate that she got leased out to her married daughter and son-in-law to take care of her. And we have no idea when Dorcas died because the clerks didn't bother to record the death of paupers. Mm-hmm. So we don't know where Dorcas was buried, just as we don't know where Hannah Swarton was buried, who was the greatest heroine Beverly ever had. And when she died, she was a pauper, so again, she's lost to, her grave is lost to history.
And if you know the show, Who Do You Think You Are, which is a genealogy show, we had filming here last winter. It was a really cold day because Jean Smart, do you remember Designing Women, of Dorcas Hoar. And so she was here in the house. It was a really remarkable day. We thought at first when they told us someone was coming, I said, great, we got a hail to send it. And then they said it's Dorcas Hoar. I'm like, eh. But anyway, it was great. So Ed has written a whole book called Thieves, Cowbeaters, and Other True Tales of Colonial Beverly. So if you want to hear more stories, we have the book probably here and also at the Cabot House. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you
Very much.
Wow.